You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
It's not a good feeling to be in the midst of trying to recover from a storm and have to drop everything and pivot to preparing for a new storm.
The Tampa area braces for another major hurricane. The latest alerts and evacuation orders as Milton bears down on Florida. Then the Supreme Court is back in session. What we're learning about the likelihood they'll overrule the Biden administration's regulation of ghost guns. And this year's Halloween candy selection may be a bit different from years past. Why chocolate could be harder to find on the store shelves as you prepare for trick-or-treaters to come knocking. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Right now, Hurricane Milton has re-strengthened back into a Category 5 storm with winds up to 165 miles per hour. Right now, headed towards the Tampa Bay area. The same area, by the way, still reeling from the devastation caused by winds and tides from Hurricane Helene last week. President Biden urged all residents in the path to follow proper instructions by local and federal officials.
If you're under evacuation orders, you should evacuate now. You should have already evacuated. It's a matter of life and death, and that's not hyperbole.
The National Weather Service says there is a peak storm surge forecast as life-threatening 10 to 15 feet above ground level from Inglewood to the Anclote River, and almost the entire Florida coast will see rising waters during the storm. Even outside of the direct path of the eye of the storm, many residents have concerns about the storm surge, flooding, and power outages, among other things. Karis Harmon, she spoke with some of those residents, and she's joining us now live from Gainesville. Karis.
Yeah, that's right. Gainesville and its residents are now in preparation mode. We actually got to speak to some of those residents, and they say they are very concerned about the storm, but many of them don't plan on leaving.
Very concerned. It's big. It's a lot of power, and it doesn't look like it's moving too fast, so it could be a big storm.
As Hurricane Milton eyes Florida, residents in Gainesville are getting ready for the worst.
I just want to be more prepared for it and everything like that. So this time, get some sandbags and everything for flooding purposes. I bought more groceries and I got a cooler and lots of water.
The city of Gainesville provided 2 locations to get sandbags.
We did about 8,000 bags yesterday.
As of noon today, he says the city distributed some 2,000 sandbags. He says historically, Alachua County has been a hub for evacuees, but hotels in the area are at capacity.
Currently, there are no vacancy rates in Alachua County for hotels. Our shelters here in Alachua County will be opening up at noon. If they do get filled, there are contingency shelters in place to help with displaced people.
While residents we spoke with say they are concerned about the storm's impacts, including gasoline shortages and power outages. Most tell us they're not evacuating.
We're not moving. We hung it out with Helene, and she was closer to us than Milton is, so we're going to hang it out.
I'm used to it. No big deal.
Now, we did hear from some residents who say some of the local gas stations here in our area are already running out of fuel. I'm in Gainesville. Karis Harmon, back to you.
All right, Karis, thank you for that live report there. And as we now await Milton, the death toll from Hurricane Helene continues to climb. Now it is past 230. North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services confirmed 5 more deaths in Buncombe County, bringing the total there to 84. Meantime, over 100,000 residents of that state are still without electricity. Thousands of people are working to restore power and water in multiple states. They're working to deliver supplies, open roads, and conduct search and rescues. Here's how one volunteer says a woman reacted after she was rescued.
She was completely calm and collected, and then about halfway to the airport, she broke down on us and said, "I just hiked 8 miles from my house to get to the town. I can't believe I'm alive. I almost fell down the ravine multiple times. I have these 2 giant dogs with me. I don't even know how they made it."
Pretty incredible. And that volunteer, by the way, you saw there, she is now standing by to help in Florida as Hurricane Milton approaches. Millions of customers can't access their water utility accounts tonight, but their water service, we understand, is still intact. American Water, the largest publicly traded water utility in the U.S., informed the Securities and Exchange Commission yesterday they had discovered unauthorized activity on its systems on October 3rd. The utility covers 14 million customers across 14 states, as well as 18 military institutions. In their first case of the new legal year, Supreme Court justices seemed to support upholding President Joe Biden's regulations against ghost guns. The regulation requires companies to add serial numbers to gun kits to make them traceable, run background checks, and verify the age of buyers. Gun rights groups and manufacturers argue it has always been legal to sell separate gun parts to hobbyists, and that most crimes are committed with traditional guns. And we are now 4 weeks away from Election Day. The presidential race is tightening very much. A new Reuters Ipsos poll has Vice President Harris leading former President Donald Trump 46% to 43% nationally, which, by the way, is within the margin of error. Harris had a 6-point lead in a previous poll. Harris right now in New York City for a round of interviews as she continues her media blitz, appearing on The View, The Late Night Show with Stephen Colbert, and talking with radio host Howard Stern. Harris's team is prioritizing more interviews as the Democratic nominee introduces herself to as many voters as possible. President Biden, meantime, also campaigning, attending a private fundraiser for U.S. Senator Bob Casey, who is seeking a 4th term. And Trump is participating in a virtual town hall called Make America Healthy Again at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, and that will be hosted by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Trump's campaign said he postponed a Latino summit roundtable at Trump National Doral, Miami today because of the severe weather forecast from Hurricane Milton. And the future of the internet could be tied to the future president. Tonight, new warnings about what that could mean in terms of censorship of Americans' free speech. Here's national correspondent Christine Verzau.
A still unsettled question in Washington. To what extent should the government regulate social media?
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Critics compare the internet to the wild, wild west, with no laws and the ability for terror attacks to be quickly planned, for children to be easily targeted, and for misinformation to spread like wildfire. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton calling for the repeal of Section 230, which gives online platforms immunity from speech that's posted on their sites, suggesting Congress should pass laws that promote regulation.
If they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control.
Online free speech advocates say control by the government is precisely what the First Amendment was designed to protect against.
The First Amendment ensures that the public is able to share their opinions and exchange their views with broader society without government interference.
So far, Congress has only passed one law, signed by President Biden, that requires TikTok's parent company ByteDance to divest or face a ban in the United States. The Kids Online Safety Act passed 91-3 in the Senate, but still has yet to pass the House, with questions about censorship and presidential candidates dominating some social media sites. Elon Musk predicting Kamala Harris would take action against his platform, X.
If she wins, how can they let X continue in its current form, in its current role in American society?
They won't. They will try to shut it down by any means possible.
Now, there is no evidence Vice President Harris would take any such action. Any new laws regarding new rules for or regulation of big tech companies would have to, of course, be passed by Congress, Amira.
And Christine, seemingly little Congress has done when it comes to free speech online. But what about other ways the government can rein in these big tech companies?
Well, we have seen the Department of Justice go after some of these companies, like Google, for example, for their absolutely dominating presence globally. Over the summer, a federal court ruled that Google controls an illegal monopoly in online search, making it impossible for smaller rivals to compete, with the potential it could be forced to be broken apart in the future.
All right, Christine Frizzell reporting for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you for that report. Google's popular search engine is waiting for the Department of Justice to outline steps needed to restore proper competition in the online search sector. In August, a federal court ruled Google operates within an illegal monopoly over searches. Google has spent billions of dollars to be the default search engine on devices like Apple's iPhone. Possible options for the DOJ would be to end these agreements or even force Google to divest from its search engine entirely. Google has appealed the court ruling and say they are the #1 engine because of users' trust. The Federal Aviation Administration has identified a new threat for airlines using Boeing's 737 planes. The FAA says there is potential for limited or jammed rudder movement that could impact safety on landings. NTSB is investigating a landing in Newark back in February when the rudder pedals on a United 737 MAX 8 got stuck. There were no injuries reported to the 161 passengers and crew on board. But the news comes as Boeing announces today it has delivered just 33 new planes last month, down from 40 in August. Boeing attributed the decline to the ongoing machinist strike that began on September 13th. 33,000 workers walked off the job seeking higher wages and benefits. The models most affected by the strike so far have been Boeing's 777 and 767 wide-body jets. Tonight, a former aide to New York's mayor charged with witness tampering and destroying evidence in the investigation that led to Eric Adams' bribery indictment. Mohammed Bahu, who resigned on Monday, is accused of encouraging campaign donors to lie to the FBI and also accused of deleting an encrypted messaging app from his cell phone just as FBI agents arrived to search his home in July. In recent weeks, more than a half dozen of the mayor's top aides have departed amid a rash of searches and subpoenas. This as New York Governor Kathy Hochul pressures Adams to bring stability to the city's government. Coming up, immigration remains a top concern for millions of voters. More on the vice president's stance and her view of the Biden administration's handling of the issue. Then the negative impact some Seattle restaurant owners fear with an upcoming minimum wage bump. And this Halloween season, why you might have a harder time finding chocolate when you're looking to stock up for those trick-or-treaters. In less than a month, we will know which candidate wins in the bid for the White House, but there remains many undecided voters weighing the nominees on a host of top issues, including immigration. Tonight, a look at the vice president's recent comments and the Republican response.
In an interview with 60 Minutes, Vice President Kamala Harris was repeatedly questioned about how the Biden administration has handled the southern border and why drastic changes weren't made sooner to curb the number of crossings.
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
The current administration has seen record migration over the last 3.5 years, including nearly 2.5 million crossings in fiscal year 2023.
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today,
watch.
because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
Harris's own stance has toughened over the past few weeks, and in a new ad, touted her time as California's Attorney General.
She put cartel members and drug traffickers behind bars, and she will secure our border.
After President Joe Biden restricted asylum claims in June, the number of undocumented migrants illegally crossing the southern border reached the lowest point of his administration. CBS News reports that in September, Border Patrol agents recorded nearly 54,000 apprehensions of migrants who entered the U.S. between official ports of entry. But former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, claims the current administration hasn't fixed the problem, just diverted it.
This is the individual for the past 4 years have told American people again and again that our borders are secure and there was no crisis. Now, all of a sudden, she's a tough border hawk.
And tonight, a decade after the Flint, Michigan water crisis raised alarms about the dangers of lead in tap water, President Biden has set a 10-year deadline for cities across the nation to replace their lead pipes. Making that announcement in Milwaukee, the president finalized a bold approach, saying now is the time we prioritize making drinking water safe.
I'm here today to tell you that I'm finally insisting that it gets prioritized, and I'm insisting it get done.
The Environmental Protection Agency, which will oversee the process, will invest $2.6 billion for drinking water enhancements and to replace lead pipes. We are now tracking developing news, an apparent Israeli airstrike that hit the Syrian capital of Damascus. The Syrian ministry reporting tonight that 7 people have been killed in this strike, including women and children, and 11 more have been injured in a residential area right near the Iranian embassy in Damascus. The New York Times reporting the attack was an attempt to assassinate a Hezbollah official involved in weapons smuggling. It is unclear if that official is among the wounded or dead. Chocolate lovers might have a disappointing Halloween this year. Stores are stocking fewer chocolate items and more sugary candies due to increases in cocoa prices. This according to media research company Circana. A new study by the group says retailers have increased non-chocolate items by at least 10% this season. Data from Nielsen IQ says seasonal chocolate candy prices are up nearly 8% from last year and up 40% since 2020. Sugary candies also up in that time, but to a lesser extent. And Pepsi is not expecting as much revenue this year as Americans snack less and reduce their spending at convenience stores. Today, PepsiCo cut its full-year revenue growth outlook from 4% down to the low single digits. This follows a quarter of surprisingly weak sales driven by poor demand and the impacts of a Quaker Oats recall. That, according to the CEO. Developing now, attorneys general from more than a dozen states and Washington, D.C. suing TikTok, alleging it's harming the mental health of minors. They say its platform is designed to be addictive. The lawsuit cites TikTok's algorithm, endless scrolling videos, face filters, and push notifications. The AGs say that this has caused, quote, profound harms like anxiety, depression, and body dysmorphia. TikTok says they strongly disagree with the claims in the lawsuit. TikTok is also facing a potential ban in January if its China-based parent company does not sell the platform. In the first firing of the NFL season, the New York Jets have parted ways with head coach Robert Saleh following a disappointing 2-3 start. Team officials announced the news following this weekend's Jets loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Saleh had an overall record of 20 wins and 36 losses in the regular season. He never took the Jets to the playoffs during his 3+ seasons with the organization. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich is now the interim head coach. In your health alert tonight, a new and improved flu shot is now in the works, and it sounds like this season we may need it. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares the latest on this year's flu vaccine.
Hey there, everybody. The CDC has just announced that this year's flu vaccine may not be as effective as it has been in previous years when it comes to protecting you against the flu. Preliminary data on this year's flu shot from the Southern Hemisphere, which gets their flu season ahead of ours, says that the effectiveness of this year's vaccine only about 35% against hospitalization in those at risk for severe complications from the flu. Last year, it was more than 50% effective. It appears it's because rather than most people getting the H1N1 strain, which was part of the flu formula for protection, more people got the H3N2 variant. If we follow the same pattern in the U.S., we will likely have the same levels of protection. CDC infectious disease specialists are still recommending the shot this season because partial protection can still keep you from getting seriously ill and needing care in the hospital. But if you haven't had the flu vaccine yet, you might want to consider signing up for a clinical trial. The team at Velocity Clinical Research has sites all around the world testing several flu vaccines that could offer better protection.
We think they might work a little better, cover better strains.
To qualify for one of these trials, you need to be in good health, and you'll either be given the new and improved vaccine or the standard shot. Researchers then compare results.
A lot of times what we do is we have you fill out a little diary. Was your arm sore? Did you feel a little crummy after the vaccine? How did you feel? And so then we can track and see what kind of effects that the vaccine is having. And we also can take blood samples to see something called immunogenicity, if you're reacting in a way that we're hopeful is protecting you from the virus.
Liz Bonus reporting there. Coming up, how a 9-year-old's lemonade stand led to a big donation for one West Virginia animal shelter. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin in Seattle with the controversy over a minimum wage increase.
If you count on a good restaurant scene, Charlie Anthe says there is now a math problem.
That's almost a 20% increase.
He owns Moshi Moshi in Ballard.
I think this process has been extremely unfair and very un-Seattle-like.
He pushed for a change to the wage rate, which will jump from $17.25 an hour to $20.76 in 2025, not accounting for the tip credit he gets as a small business right now. The city's council attempted to amend the decade-old rate scale this summer, but were met with pushback. But Bree Martinez says it is good news that the city upheld an ordinance for bar and restaurant workers like her.
It definitely shows that there can be some trust put into our elected officials when they follow through with promises that were made.
The 21 victims of the Uvalde massacre, forever to be remembered in numerous ways throughout the brand new elementary school.
We're doing this so that we can remember these children and these teachers, right? And that we're never going to forget, but it's going to stay there for generations and generations after we're gone.
But less than a year away from the $60 million school being open, a name that helps keep the victim's memory alive is yet to be decided. Tuesday, though, that might change. The 18-person renaming committee, which has been developing the name for nearly a year, will give their suggestion to the school board.
Meet 9-year-old Bree Barger.
Say hi, Rooster!
She has a big love for animals.
Even when you're sad, there's someone to listen to you, someone to cuddle with when you don't feel the best. They're just always here for you.
At just 6 years old, Bree wanted to help shelter animals.
Well, I really like community service and I like animals, so why not combine this together? Because I was just kind of bored, I wanted something to do.
So she came up with the idea of having a lemonade stand. And all of the money from sales, she uses to purchase donations for the Putnam County Animal Shelter. This sale from over the summer, she was able to raise more than $500.
Nice job, young lady. And just ahead, the changes coming to the Mega Millions lottery that could improve your odds of winning. The price of a Mega Millions lottery ticket is more than doubling starting in April. Lottery officials say raising the price from $2 to $5 will lead to higher chances of winning and bigger prizes. There also won't be any break-even prizes, so winning tickets will always be more than the ticket cost. More updates to come on this, but it does sound promising. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.